What's up guys, my name is Rising and welcome back to another gun guide. This is the series where we take a deep dive into all of the important stats, as well as providing excellent class setups for all of the weapons in Call of Duty Mobile's multiplayer. And again, as requested by you guys, today we're taking a deep look into a weapon which saw some nice buffs in the recent patch, the Lag 53, and comparing it to its immediate competitor, the Oden, and see whether it can finally take over it and can acquire a place in the current meta.
So without further ado, let us jump right into their raw power potential. And as always, we'll cover them individually for this particular section so that you can have enough depth with these. For the Oden, our maximum damage range stretches up to 16 meters, where you can achieve a 2-shot kill by mixing at least a single head or upper torso shot. Otherwise, you can also hit 2 arm shots in the process to achieve a 2-shot. Beyond that, up to 28 meters, you can still get a 2-shot by mixing either 1 head, 2 upper torso, or 1 upper torso and 1 arm shot, which is practically not so difficult to achieve considering your arms will generally block your chest. Although beyond that range, you need to hit 2 consecutive headshots to achieve a 2-shot kill, otherwise you get an infinite 3-shot, which is great. By far, the Oden seems to be incredible as far as its damage is concerned. However, it has the second slowest base full auto rate of fire in its category, as well as in the entire game at 414 rounds per minute. This means it's not a very forgiving gun if you're missing your shots, and you'll add 145 milliseconds to your time to kill for each missed shot. Speaking of time to kill, our 2-shot time to kill is 145 milliseconds, which is very impressive in this game at the moment. And even if you have to hit 3 shots, you can still kill in 290 milliseconds, which is not bad by any means. However, you should be very aware of its slow firing nature and must be pinpoint accurate if you want to achieve its full potential. With the Oden, we have access to 2 unique magazine attachments which are worth covering, so let us spend a few minutes on this section. First, we have the 12.7 by 55 subsonic heavy ammo, which, as the name suggests, makes the weapon fire silently and also giving a nice 20% improvement to all of our damage ranges. It also improves our material penetration as well as bullet impact. However, coming with the downside of a colossal 60% reduction to our bullet velocity, which destroys its usability beyond its maximum damage range. And since the Oden is primarily used at those mid to longer range encounters, this attachment harms the weapon more than anything, and you should be staying far away from it. The next unique magazine we have access to is the 12.7 by 55 duplex ammo, which now makes the gun fire 2 shots instead of 1, although the damage output being halved for each shot. I don't see any practicality with this ammo, as you'll be requiring the same number of shots to kill as the base weapon, and on top of that it generates unwanted inconsistencies at those longer ranges, so better stay far away from this as well. And now for the Lag 53, our maximum damage range stretches up to 20 meters, where you can achieve a 2-shot kill if you hit at least a single head or torso shot. Beyond that, up to 30 meters, you need to hit either 1 head, 2 torsos, or 1 torso and 1 lower arm shot to achieve the same potential. And this is the only range where the lower arm multiplier buff actually matters. However, unlike the Oden, the Lag does not have an upper arm multiplier, which means if you hit a single shot to the upper arm, you'll reduce to a 3-shot kill unless you hit the other shot to the head. And speaking of 3-shot, just like the Oden, the Lag is also an infinite 3-shot kill. The key difference here is that the Oden is much superior in its maximum damage range due to its much forgiving multipliers. However, the Lag takes over in the second damage range, where it is now more forgiving than the Oden in achieving a 2-shot kill. As for rate of fire, the Lag has the slowest full auto rate of fire in the entire game at 400 rounds per minute. This means that each missed shot will add 150 milliseconds to your time to kill, and you really cannot afford to miss too many shots with this gun. But if you're pinpoint accurate, you can kill in 150 milliseconds for a 2-shot kill and 300 milliseconds for a 3-shot kill, both of which are very competitive in the current meta, but just like the Oden, you must be very aware of its slow firing. The Lag also features a unique barrel attachment called the 13.0-inch OSW Parabarrel, which turns this weapon into a semi-automatic fire. This barrel only improves our head multipliers, which means now you can achieve a 1-shot headshot all the way up to its second damage range. And speaking of ranges, this attachment also improves all of our damage ranges by 10%, and also boosting our handling and mobility stats, which will come shortly. But most importantly, with this barrel, our rate of fire is improved to 430 rounds per minute, minute. This means our new 2 and 3 shot time to kills will be 140 and 279 milliseconds respectively. On paper, this might sound like an immediate upgrade to the base Lag 53, but in practice, it's much better to use an actual semi-automatic marksman rifle like the SKS, Type 63, or the newly released SO14, which have far better consistencies than the Lag 53. Although unlike the magazines on the Oden, I'd not consider this to be an utter waste of an attachment. It's just that better, reliable options exist, and there's no advantage of running this weapon over them. In saying that though, if you really want to challenge yourself or just want to have fun and looking for a unique sort of weapon, then you can definitely give this attachment a shot. But with that out of the way, let us now compare them in my range chart. And as usual, there's nothing too significant to point out here. The Lag has a slight range advantage than the Oden, although lacking in close range consistency. Both have the same hit scan range at 14.1 meters. However, with the Oden's subsonic rounds, our new hit scan range is just 5.6 meters. This makes range encounters next to impossible with this gun, and you literally have to lead your targets just to land those shots. So if really you want to have a good time, then just forget that this attachment exists. As for handling, the Lag has the slowest base aim down sight time in its category at 300 milliseconds, and also a very slow sprint out time at 190 milliseconds, whereas the Oden is much better than the Lag in this aspect. As for mobility, the Lag is the second slowest in its category in terms of base movement speed, and the slowest in terms of both sprint and aim walking speed. Just for context, this is very close to that of belt-fed LMGs like the MG42. The Lag will definitely feel like a slug while moving with it, and on top of that, it doesn't feature any attachment that improves its mobility, apart from the semi-automatic barrel. The Oden isn't far behind the Lag, but it has a clear upper advantage in terms of its overall mobility. As for accuracy, the Oden has a much better ADS spread than the Lag. It is also worth mentioning that the value displayed in the advanced stats page isn't accurate, and the actual BSA is on the lines of the DRH, as you can see from this comparison here. I'm firing the weapon full auto at max range, and you can clearly see the similarity here. So in short, the Oden has top tier BSA, and it helps a lot if you want to challenge those longer range encounters. As for hipfire, the Oden is the worst in its category, and also considering its slow fire rate, you generally don't want to be hipfiring because one single missed shot will often make the difference between life and death with this gun. Even though the Lag has a better hipfire than the Oden, you shouldn't be hipfiring with this either unless you're basically touching the enemy. The hit flinch is pretty much standard for both of them. However, the bullet impact is excellent for both, given the fact that they are slow-firing weapons. The Lag also got a buff to its bullet impact this season, and now has the second highest base full-auto bullet impact value in the game, which is great.
And now for the recoil. This is one area where the Oden's performance starts to fade away when comparing with the Lag. As you can see, the Oden has a terrifying recoil pattern. I literally had to scale down my figures to accommodate its full recoil pattern. Not only its magnitude is so high, the shots are also very spaced out, which is one of the big downsides of this gun. And especially at longer ranges, when you're trying to hit those upper torso shots, this will absolutely throw you off target and is definitely something that you want to pay attention to with this gun. In saying so, the saving point here is that due to its slow firing nature, once you find the exact speed of pulling down your gun, you can actually get the recoil very much into control, and that's what most of the pros do in the competitive scene. However, with the Lag, the recoil is extremely low and smooth, and you can beam with this gun at range if you have a semi-decent aim. And finally, for their base stats, the magazine capacity is low for both of them, although at the same time with their super slow fire rate, it's not like you're going to burn through their magazines like instantly. It does take a bit of time to get through it. As for their reload times, these are pathetically slow for weapons with such low magazine capacities, so you should generally be aware of it unless you want to get caught off guard while reloading. But with that, we're done with all the base stats for both the Oden and the Lag 53. So far, we've seen that the Oden is better than just about every single aspect. It just has a worse recoil pattern, hipfire spread, and a slightly lesser consistency than the Lag for a 2-shot kill in the medium damage range. But those were just the base stats. Now let us kit them up and see where they finally hold up to.
For the Oden, we have the monolithic suppressor for concealment in range, short barrel for overall improved mobility, light stock for improved strafe speed, operator foregrip to cut down that vertical climb, and finally the granulated grip tape for improved accuracy. For the Lag 53, there are not too many good attachments to choose from, which is again a drawback on this weapon. We're using the tactical suppressor because monolithic has two heavy cons: factory 18-inch aluminum stock for better strafing. We have the FMJ perk, as with this you can now achieve a 3-shot kill through walls up to medium thickness, 5 milliwatt laser to help with our hip fire and sprint out times, and finally the granulated grip tape. Again, this gun doesn't offer a variety of attachment options, and this is the best that I could find. And finally, I have a build for the Lag 53 if you want to use it in semi-auto. With this, we have the tactical suppressor, 13.0-inch OSW parabarrel, a low zoom optic since this is a precision build, aluminum stock, and finally the granulated grip tape. For the rest of the video, I'll be only comparing the full auto Lag 53 as that is the main point of this video.
And with the builds out of the way, first let us have a look on their new recoil patterns, although they're pretty much similar to the base versions of the two weapons. The recoil is unchanged for the case of the Lag, although we see a very slight improvement to the Oden, which is still very high and you must pull down hard to control it. As for the ranges, the maximum damage range is now identical for both of them at 20 meters, while the medium damage range is 5 meters more than the Lag at 35 meters, although the Lag has a slightly better consistency in the mid-ranges than the Oden, as what we've already discussed earlier. As for the other stats, you can see the Oden is pretty much superior than the Lag 53 in terms of ADS spread, mobility, aim down sight, magazine capacity, and reload speed, whereas the Lag comes on top in its mid-range consistency, hipfire spread, bullet impact, hit flinch, and sprint out time. The time to kills are basically the same for both the weapons. A 5 milliseconds per shot difference won't really cause any intricacies.
But that's pretty much it. That is going to wrap it up on this comparison between the newly buffed Lag 53 and its primary competitor, the Oden. And now for the final question. Is the Lag finally worth using over the Oden? Well, if you want to play competitively, then no. The Oden is still much superior to the Lag in just about every other aspect that matters the most for a weapon to be top tier. It has better handling and mobility, better close range consistency, and better magazine capacity and reload speed. The only area where the Lag takes the lead is in recoil control, which isn't so much of an issue with the Oden, and also in the medium damage range, while sacrificing its close range lethality, which matters the most in a practical gunfight. The buff was definitely welcoming. It became from one of the worst weapons in its category to a decent side grade to the Oden. But you should remember that it is still a side grade, not an alternative. Thus, the Oden still remains easily as a top-tier option, while the Lag comes nowhere near to it. But that doesn't mean that the Lag is utter garbage. It is a very fun weapon to use if you're bored of using the Oden. Another advantage the Oden has that it primarily functions as a flex, which can double up as a main, whereas the Lag is better suited for a passive main AR playstyle, where you can challenge longer ranges and head glitches, even though the Oden performs better in the later aspect, thanks to its body multipliers. So what would really make the Lag an actual alternative to the Oden, rather than being a side grade? First off, improve the lower arm multipliers to 1.1 so that it can achieve a 2-shot up close with better consistency. This doesn't really change the consistency at mid to longer ranges, so it is a viable adjustment. Secondly, improve the gun's mobility to at least match the Oden standards. Thirdly, improve its reload speed, because 1.6 seconds reload for a 20-round magazine is very unnatural. And finally, if possible, add some extra benefits to the existing attachments, like monolithic suppressor giving 25% range boost as usual, unlike 15%, and also no stock having a movement speed boost since the current one has way too many downsides than upsides.
With these adjustments, I believe the Lag can actually compete against the Oden, maybe even a little better than it, but we have to see where it finally makes up to if these even take place. But till then, if you're playing competitively, the Oden will be hands down your weapon of choice. But if you're tired of using that, then you might give the Lag 53 a shot. But of course, those are just my thoughts on the newly buffed Lag 53. Now I'd love to hear from you guys. What do you think of the weapon? Which one would you prefer between the Oden and the Lag? And what do you propose on further buffs to the Lag if you think it's performing suboptimally now? Just let your thoughts in those comments down below. If you want any further comparison video or in fact any solo weapon breakdown, feel free to let me know. Also, I'd highly appreciate if you provide some suggestions as what else you want me to cover apart from gun guides. I already have some ideas in mind which I'll start working on once I'm done with the buffed weapons for this season. Join my Discord server to gain access to all of my recommended builds for all of the weapons as well as other in-depth analysis. Make sure to subscribe as we're very close to 500 subs, and if you like the video, a like rating is always appreciated. And I'll catch you guys on the next one.